In this demonstration video, we're going to show how we created the ColorLogic test form files using our decorative palettes and plugins for Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator and InDesign. Now, our test forms are divided into two pages. The first page that you can see on the screen here is a range of designs that have been created using those palette and plugins techniques. Now, down in the bottom corner here is a number 49. That actually tells you that on those test forms there are 49 different metallic colours being created at the same time. Now, I'm going to turn off the CMYK so we can see the separations. Now, what you see on the screen here is what we call our effect printing plate. It's the ColorLogic separation. Now, what we mean is where you're designing where you want to see the metallic. So if I was printing this with a silver ink or toner, the silver areas is the silver ink or toner. However, if I'm printing this onto a metallized material like a foil board or paper and using a white ink as a mask, what you see here is the silver substrate and the white will be the white ink mask. And that's all controlled at the RIP or the DFE. So we've worked with our technology partners for them to be able to process the ColorLogic separation correctly at the RIP level. And that means that you never have to make a white ink separation. Now, there are other palette technologies that are coming out to market with certain digital presses where they've created their own metallic spot library, but those are very limited. You can only literally apply them as a spot colour. It means you cannot do all the different types of effects, you cannot do gradations, you cannot blend different metallic colours together, you cannot create dimensional areas and watermarks, you cannot do photorealistic separations inside images. And that's the techniques we're going to explain today to show why ColorLogic is a far superior colour system for metallic printing that encompasses any device that can use either white ink or silver ink from one file. You don't have to make different files for different application programs or for different type of printing processes. It's all done at the design level using the colour palettes and plugins by ColorLogic. So to get to this, we're going to actually show you how we create those different effects. So on page 2 of our test forms, we have a range of blocks of colours. And normally you'll see these all coloured up, but I've made them all black just so we can start again. What we're going to do is we're going to open up the ColorLogic palette, and from here you'll see we have a whole range of colours and effects in that design. Now, I'm just going to use a few of these to start off with, and I'm actually going to colour up all these panels here on the left hand side, these first 4 columns here. And I'm going to colour them up the same. So first of all, I'm going to start off with maybe a bronze type colour. Oops, I think I've got one of my files slightly set wrong there. Just ungroup all this and take that back to its design level. Okay, try that one again. Okay, there we go. So all I'm doing is I'm just clicking and applying the colour. And if we just have a look at our separations, you'll see that as we go along, it's going to generate the silver ColorLogic separation inside there. So we don't have to worry about designing it. It's all done automatically as we're crawling the files up. So next I'm going to do the next rows down, and let's do something like, let's start using maybe like a greenish colour. So I'll do like a number 50. And then let's choose some others. So I'll go through and I colour up my artwork as I see fit. And what you'll be doing is you'd actually be going through your swatch book and picking the colours you want to design with. But obviously I cannot show you the colour swatch book on the screen at the same time, so you just have to trust me that I'll be going through my design and colouring up my files appropriately. So let's add in a darker blue, and let's now go to the purple range. Let's have this one here, and then we'll go into the magentas. Maybe let me change to maybe 190. I like 190. It's a nice cleanish colour. And let's finish off with like a red, because red is one of those colours that looks great on foil substrates, but with metallic inks you'll find that these colours don't always come out as red as you would expect. And the one thing I want to explain here is that when you are working with metallics, all metallics have a colour appearance of grey. So the silver effect or silver ink has an approximate colour value of 20 to 30% black. Okay, so thinking about that, if you put colour on top of 30% black, it's always going to take the appearance of that metallic below it. So you're never going to get a pure red or a pure blue. But that's the nature of designing with metallic inks. Okay, so what I've done here at the moment, I've just made them all those solid colours. So that's great. I've now actually achieved what I wanted to do on this left hand side. These are my solid colours. So I'm just going to hide these for the moment. So these colours here, that is what you can achieve using other technologies out there at the moment that can do spot metallics, and that's fine if you want to work with the spot metallic. But what would happen if I wanted to reduce the metallic effect in here but not the colour? You cannot do that with the spot colour system, because if you reduce the spot colour value down to say 50%, what you're actually getting is 50% of the colour and 50% of the metallic. But what we can do with Colour Logic is we can actually change the opacity of that colour down to whatever we like, purely by using our sliders. So our system builds up multiple layers of our colour separations. All we have to do is select the Colour Logic separation and reduce it down to whatever we want. So I'm actually using a sliding scale here down to 50%. So if I turn off the CMYK, you'll see now I've got 50% of the metallic, but I'm retaining 100% of the colour. Now you cannot do that with spot colour systems that are in the marketplace, purely because that's all handled at the RIP level. So you're using a fixed LUT file that has fixed colour values. So it really means that it's only as good as actually working with a system for spot colours on their own. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the file, and I'm just going to bring back some information. Let's get rid of some of these that I've hidden, because I'm going to come back to those a bit later on and explain what those are. Okay, so next we're going to work with dimensional effects. So this is the range in the middle here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and colour up, make some text actually. So let me just go and make a text panel, call it dimensional effects. Let's just move that over here, and let's just center that text, make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to change the font to something a bit bolder. Let's go with a nice black typeface which stands out. Okay, so what I do is I basically get my text in the position where I want it. So I'm going to put one down here as well. And I'll just repeat these down. Once I've got them in position, I'm now going to realign them just to make sure they're equally spaced. Should be that one there. Okay, so at the moment I've got to take into account the colour that's in the background. So this colour here was set up using Colour Logic number 10 from our graphic style library. So if I go back up to number 10, you will also see that this number 10 here has a 10 dimensional effect and a 10 watermark effect. So all I need to do, if the colour in the background is number 10 and I want dimensional effect, I colour up 10 dimensional effect. The next colour that I chose, let me just pull my appearance box over so you can see what I'm doing on my slide monitor. I'm actually picking up the other green colour, and that is number 50. So it's telling me in my palette down here it's number 50. Just move this over a little bit so it's not as messy on the screen. So let's go down to number 50, and again you'll see that number 50 has its dimensional effect. So I'm going to go through and do that for each one of these techniques. Next colour I'm using was number 90. Again, we'll scroll down to number 90. Dimensional effects. The next one was number 10, 110 I believe. And the blue was, let me think, 130. There we go. Easy to look at that, 130. Dimensional effect. And then it was 160. 190, I remember doing that one. Where are you? 190. And the final one was 230. So on 230 dimensional effect. Okay, so what's happening there when we actually output our files? If I turn off the CMYK now, what you're seeing is it's creating this knockout mask automatically. So if I'm printing that on a metallic substrate, I've got metallic here and it's putting a white ink mask down and it's blocking out that effect. So what's going to happen here is those colours and those effects will go from lighter to darker as you move the print. That's why we call it dimensional, because it really is changing the dimension of the actual print. Now I'm going to take these files now And I'm also going to do this for watermark. So let's just change that to over here. And this time I'm going to change the text to watermark. And again, what we have to do is go through and apply the colours to each one. So this one was number 10 right up at the top. Oops. And we colour this one correctly. There we go. So select the text, colour at number 10. Okay, so what colours did we have? Let's go back and check those out. So we should now have number 50. This one was 90. It's number 110. Watermark on there. And this was number 130 this time. That one was 160. 190 for that one. And the final one was 230. So when we look at the separations again now, what we're going to actually see is, just call this one up, we're now creating a subliminal hidden pattern in the background. In this case we're using text. So that text, it could be a logo, it could be, like I say, text, it could be an image, it could be a pattern, it could be anything you want to. All you have to do is apply it to the same colour. So the theory goes, whatever the colour you have in the background, the effect would be its appropriate colour effect. So if it was 230 in the background, it'd be 230 watermark, or this one was a dimensional. So that's a great way to be able to create all these different effects. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to take away the metallic layer of these elements here. So I'm just going to delete the color logic separation. So now these are just in CMYK. Now that's fine, because what I want to do now is use this watermark effects plus technique. I've actually already set them. So basically there's all you have to do is create your design, your pattern or your element, color it up with a watermark effect technique. So you can use watermark effects plus, regular or light, it's up to you, whichever one you want. I've already added that in for speed of this demonstration purpose. So now you can see we have solid colours. That's what you can do with the spot library. Then we have dimensional effect, which you cannot do. Watermarks, which you cannot do. Watermark effects plus, that's for designing onto CMYK areas. So you get this subtle shimmer of metallic in this area, but the background is CMYK. Again, you can't do that with a spot colour library. Next, we're going to do some gradients. So let's use the same colours that we have on here, and the first four I'm going to do blending metallics into metallics. So as with all metallic colours, what we do here, we're going to create linear blends. Let's make all of these linear blends. And to start off with, we're going to pick the first one, and I'm going to blend, I'll do an orange into a blue. The next one, I'm going to do a green into a pink. This one I'm going to do red into blue. And this final one, let's go with a lime green into a more of a blue colour. There we go. Now that I've created my gradient blends, all I now have to do is add on the colour logic layer. So at the moment I've got my gradient here, and I can do one of these at a time. So I've gone to my appearance layer, I'm going to do a new layer, and I'm going to put that to the colour logic and then set it to overprint so that we have our file overprinting correctly. I'm going to do the same thing here, colour logic, and do that for each one. So what we're doing here is we're making all those gradients metallic. Now, having looked at this, I don't think this green one's going to be that much of a transitional change. So we can edit these as well. So if I decide I want to change it, all I have to do is go back and find colours that I want to play around with. So let's do this one to something a bit lighter. We did an orange to blue, green to pink, red to blue. Let's go with maybe this blue here might be a bit better. Maybe the cyan might be brighter. That's looking a bit nicer. So really it's just about getting your gradients right. And from there, if I look at my separations now, you'll see how we have ColorLogic. It's a silver solid effect in that area. Now what I'm going to do next, I'm going to duplicate these. And I'm going to just replace these ones below. Okay, but this time what I'm going to show you here is that we can actually change these top layers. We're going to actually, instead of having a solid ColorLogic overprint, we're going to make that a linear gradient again. But this time we're going to gradient it with ColorLogic on one side, ColorLogic on the other side. Let's move my color palette over here. But I'm changing that value to 0 ColorLogic. Oops. So what we have now is ColorLogic silver on this side, but CMYK on that side. So we're now blending process into metallic. Let's do the same thing on here. I should pick up my same information. It's previous, and the same one on that one. And if we look at the separations, you'll see how we're now blending from 0 to 100. Now at the moment you'll see that the 0 to 100s, the gradients are not being set perfectly correct. And that's because if we look at the gradient here, my start point for the gradient slider, the midpoint, was set really quite far to the left. So I'm just going to reset those, and that's the great thing about the ColorLogic system is you have total freedom to add the designs and effects as you want. So if you want to increase the metallic effect more on the left than you do on the right, you can do that, because we're using design tools that designers are familiar with. So on the top ones here we have solid gradient metallic blends. Let's just turn on the CMYK. So you have metallic into metallic. Here we have process into metallic. Now what we could do, and we're not going to save the file in this way, but I'm just going to show you another option. We could make that a linear blend, but we could have metallic on one side, metallic on the other, and CMYK in the middle. And we can also change the rotation of that. We could make that a 90 degree and make a two-dimensional object almost look three-dimensional, simply by changing the orientation, the direction of that metallic separation. Now if we have a look at that in the separation preview, you'll see here we have the blend at the top, no metallic in the middle, metallic at the bottom. That no metallic in the middle gives a natural highlight transition in your design. A great simple way to be able to add interesting effects to your designs. So there we have it. That's how we would colour up the files using the ColorLogic palettes and plugins. And from there, all you do is you send that file to the press. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact us at support@color-logic.com.